Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets kicked off the season in Atlanta, and Cam Thomas came to put on a show. 36 points in the loss. And we get some takeaways also on Jordi Fernandez and how we can anticipate maybe being on the edge of our seats when it comes to serving the agenda of tanking this season. We dive in next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. But thank you as always for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all those great platforms and let you know that you can continue to win big all season long on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And Doug, oh baby, Nets are back, basketball's back, and the fan base had to grapple with the potential, the possibility of an enormous Cam Thomas performance costing us the agenda of tanking.
Pulled defeat from the jaws of victory. We'll take it. I honestly think that this first game of the season played out kind of exactly how I want the rest of the season to go, which is to say, I want them to play hard. I want them to look competent. I want the games to be exciting. We'll take a win if it comes, right? Like if they are able to just, buzzer beater a win or something like that, or it's okay because there's not. And if they lose, look, you went down swinging, literally and figuratively when it comes to Nick Claxton. So it's one of those things where I walked away from this game really being like, if this is how the Nets season plays out, compiling losses is tough to watch. But if everyone's kind of playing hard and getting better and looking toward the future while also keeping their trade value maybe on the higher side, I can do 82 games of that. There's 82 games. I can sign up for that. And I think that's what we saw here. And I really was impressed with sort of the overall energy level that they brought, some of the stuff that Jordi Fernandez did, and just how they hung with this team and really made the Hawks sweat to the end.
And the Brooklyn Nets are going to play again on Friday night, so we're going to focus on Cam Thomas, obviously, with a game like that. Talk about Ben Simmons getting back on the court here and how he looked. And plus, as Doug mentioned, what looks different for this team with Jordi Fernandez. And then we'll have plenty more to cover ahead of the next game for the Brooklyn Nets. But, to your point, man, there would be something different if you went through this season saying, well, the Nets are down by 17 in the first, and there'll be 3 more quarters to go. It would be a bad look, a bad sentiment, a bad vibe for Jordi Fernandez as a rookie head coach to come in and seemingly not be able to get a lot of veterans, right, while they're on this roster, at least some young players as they're trying to develop, if it looked like this was a rollover and die kind of team. And I will say, just to reference Jordi Fernandez, who said, I loved our physicality. We've been talking about Brooklyn grit, right? You saw it out there with 32 fouls. I think he even at one point referenced it as 32 fouls of grit. Jordi Fernandez clearly does not want this to be a team, even if the overarching agenda is we're going to be tanking and it's going to be about a draft pick next year. He does not want to be looked at as a pushover team around the NBA. Now, fine line between physical basketball play and just mugging people around the basket. We'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah. But I do think that this first game did give you a sense of what is this team going to be game over game, we hope. It looks like he instilled that in this offseason.
Yeah, they came out ready to play for sure. The Claxton doesn't start because there's some conditioning stuff, so they get the Simmons and DFS start, which I wasn't so surprised about. But it's funny, like the Nets and maybe Jordi Fernandez too. They always just seem to get bailed out with these tough decisions. I think there's just something that happens that's just some excuse for why they don't need to do a certain thing that might be tough. But they came out for sure ready to play. They ran the system, they're running a lot of the system with Simmons, who, the DHO, foul line extended DHO stuff and him screen setting, them trying to just open shots, backdoor cut. Like that's when Simmons is there, they're looking to either space the floor, which I think they had a clear setup here. It's like space the floor. But with the other idea of if they're kind of too close to you defensively, that you try to back cut them because Simmons is really, really good at finding those guys. And so running that kind of system, it leads to turnovers because you have to time it pretty perfectly, right? Or else the passes end up out of bounds. But that seemed to be the core system that they were running when that was the case, was like, we're going to try to push the pace. We'll try to get in transition. when we're on the offensive end, we know Simmons isn't going to be too aggressive. He had a couple nice things, but overall, he wasn't just, still just not really getting to the basket. But if we can try to find some shooters, and if they just get too close, we try to backdoor them. Like, that is a system I think can work. And they just had to clean up the transition defense, which was terrible. And I actually think that that's like more of an effort thing. And I think like they can probably coach that into him a little bit too. So I was overall fine with it, with that one piece. Like they just got completely brutalized in transition.
Yeah, I think that, there is this balance of, physical play, great, but attention to detail play, we got some things to clean up here a little bit. There was just
like, you shouldn't allow any mini fast breaks off of makes. And the allowed like at least three, where the other team got out in transition off a make and no one got back. I mean, that's inexcusable. That's just like, those are things that I think actually will get cleaned up though.
Yeah, and then this goes back to, and reminds me of the preseason game when Jordi Fernandez calls the timeout in the third quarter and goes over to talk to Noah Clowney about, hey, where were you? There's a closeout here. Like, you need to be there. That feels like this transition defense that we're talking about as well. Listen, overall, as the Nets fall 120-116, it was down to the last couple of possessions of this game. You got a couple of, foul, send to the line, extend the game a little bit, but not enough for me to get frustrated by the overall vibe of the game, which we've talked about over the course of covering the Nets or just covering or watching the NBA. You hate when it becomes 12 minutes of TV time watching guys go to the line, possession over possession. Thankfully, they were able to mitigate a lot of that, tried to put up some good shots. By the way, before we transition over to Cam Thomas, but could it be any more perfect? I was sweating this one, Doug, because as we know, Doug Norrie and myself are picking every single game this year against the spread. And yours truly is up 1-0, 6.5 points. There was a moment there. They were down 8 late in the fourth. I had my concerns, and yet there I was watching Cam Thomas jack up his 7th triple of the night to go ahead and get me right back within that window that I needed to be. So coming up here in a second, Cam Thomas. Wouldn't you know it? He's capable of playing incredible offensive basketball. What does it mean for him under Jordi Fernandez developing? What did we see on both ends of the floor potentially from Cam Thomas as he gets into his contract year? We'll dive into that in just one moment.
Before we get to that, I'll tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Look, Prize Picks is daily fantasy made so easy. Over on Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money. It's just as few as 4 correct picks. You can get going in 30 states right now. It's real money, daily fantasy, and all you're doing is going more or less on the Prize Picks projections. It's so simple. Maybe you're getting in on the Spurs or the Nuggets or the Mavs or whatever tonight. Maybe a little Wemby, a little Jokic. You can go more on the 11.5 rebounds for Wemby. Maybe you want to go more on the 8.5 assists for Joker. It's all there in Prize. By the way, you can combine sports too. So you can go NFL plus NBA like that over a couple days, especially with Thursday night football. It's all there on Prize Picks. They've made it so easy. You can get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Go try to find that somewhere else. Like I said, when it comes to the NBA, when it comes to the NFL, you want your daily fantasy experience to be easy. You just go more or less, combine those picks together, you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the Prize Picks app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks daily fantasy made easy.
All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the postgame, Brooklyn Nets fall on the road in their season opener 120-116 to the Atlanta Hawks. But as we turn our attention to what I think will be happening throughout the season, bright spots. Yes, the Nets may have lost the game, but what did we see from individual players? Cam Thomas is going to be a focal point all year long. How about this, though? Just showing what we've been preaching, playing physical, getting up into guys, but we have to be controlled physically, Thomas said. At the end of the day, whether we feel like they were the right calls or not, 46 free throws is kind of unacceptable. So we've just got to learn how to play more control with our physicality, and we'll be really good. That's speaking, of course, to the defensive side of things, where Thomas did look like a better player. But guess what? We're not going to bury the lead. 36 points for Cam Thomas. It's the first time in franchise history for Brooklyn that a player has had 35-plus points in back-to-back season openers. He also tied the franchise record for 7 made threes in an opener, along with, I believe, Kyrie Irving and Patty Mills, naturally, and reminded everybody just how good he is. I mean, not that we needed to know it, but I think on opening night, when even if you're going to be a bad team and you maybe are not going to get a lot of coverage throughout the year, this is how you grab a lot of eyeballs around the NBA at large and say, guess what? I'm going to put up the second most points at the start of the NBA season behind only Jason Tatum. and ahead of Anthony Davis for the Lakers, right? Like, I'm here. I'm a part of this mix when it comes to the elite scorers of the NBA.
Yeah, he goes off in the fourth quarter, pulls him back into the game, gets the Nets to cover. That's 5+5.5 going in. Adam Ehrenberg 1-0 on the going where we're picking up the line. That did not look like a certainty near the end. But like I said, he just goes completely nuke in the fourth quarter, pulls him back into the game, hits some crazy shots. It's funny too, because the Cam Thomas experience is funny to watch because the same shots that look horrible in the first quarter, they just all end up going
first quarter, in. Not so good. Not feeling so good about Cam Thomas.
All the same shot diet exactly the same. They just all end up going in the fourth quarter. It's like, so you watch this first quarter and you're thinking, oh my goodness, the shots look terrible. Like they just did. But we have a large enough sample size. He does take some rough shots. In this offense, it's fine. There's so few guys that can create their own shot anyway that I would never begrudge him the opportunity to just shoot more. Sure. But in the fourth quarter, when he starts heating up, and he heats up with the best in the business, like when he gets going, he's among that group of, oh man, he's cooking. Everything's just going to kind of go in. Like, walk step into him threes. He gets fouled all the time in these 3-pointers too. He didn't do it this one. He just like draws so much contact. He's so strong that he, finishing around the rim is easier for him because of the strength. He's, like I said, he still can draw stuff around from distance when it comes to fouls. And so when he just gets going in the fourth quarter, he just has this in his bag, and he's just done it so many times. And it just is valuable. I mean, whatever thing you want to say about him in terms of, finding issues in his game. And I don't think effort has been one of those things either. It's like preseason, the effort was there, and it is here too. Yeah. Like, name other guys that can just heat up like this. Like, there aren't that many. There aren't that many. Yeah, there's guys who can score, and sure, there's guys, if they got to take a lot of shots in their offense, they would probably put up a lot of points. I mean, he did take 27 shots in this game, but 14 to 27, 17 to 13 from three, and didn't even get to the line that much, which he actually does really get to the line pretty well especially for his size. I mean, this is just with the experience, man. So I'm all for this all season long too. Second in the NBA in scoring right now, by the way, behind Tatum. So we'll take that too if you had some of that scoring title stuff over on FanDuel.
Yeah, you mentioned it there. I mean, the only other player anywhere close to him in terms of shots was Schroeder, who had 16. The next closest were going to be guys at 10, like Finney-Smith and Johnson. So this is nothing new in terms of what we anticipated coming into the season. Cam Thomas is going to take a lot of shots. Now, is he going to hit over 50% from the field, over 50% from beyond the arc with consistency? There's going to be, down games here. But you mentioned only getting to the line once in this game. But the other thing that I know, it's like, when you have a big performance like this from a scoring perspective, everything else pales in comparison, obviously. So saying that he had 3 assists isn't really, you're not overly excited about it. But I can remind you that there was a couple of instances when he found guys in the corner open and the shots didn't go down. Cam Johnson, there might have been a Jalen Wilson one, I think, maybe a Noah Clowney one, where it's like, okay, this could have been 4 or 5 assists to go along with his massive scoring performance. When you look inside the box score and you see that he only had 2 turnovers to go along with the volume that he was shooting at. When you have other players, we'll talk, as we get bigger sample size of the season, Simmons had turnovers, Schroeder had turnovers. Now they're ball handlers. You expect it to be a little bit higher. But if you can go out, I mean, obviously, and put up 30+ points, have 5 rebounds, have 3 assists, have 3 steals, which speaks to the defensive end of the floor for him, where he was more active, as we saw in preseason, and then only have the 2 turnovers. It's just it's an all-around quality performance. And I think just to illustrate the point that if you told me that Cam Thomas shot 40% from the field and 40% from beyond the arc and only had 23 points in this game, in totality, you'd still walk away from it feeling really good. The fact that he spiked it the way that he did and put the team on his shoulders in the third and fourth quarter, that just makes it feel like you have a guy that's starting to step into that role where he knows he is the focal point of the offense, and he needs to find ways to be able to do this on a night in, night out basis.
And look, when he's sharing this at the court with Simmons, they're just not running an offense that's going to be high assist numbers for him. That's just not what they're doing. Like, They're running dribble handoff stuff to him around the arc where they want Simmons to set the screen too, and then, maybe roll to the rim a little bit, but he's not like much of a rim runner. And so, like, there's just not, this system that they're running right now is just not going to be set up for him to just get a lot of dimes. Like, that's just, whether it's by design or just because, like, that's just not what he wants to do. As long as they're running like this, those assist numbers just really aren't going to climb that much, right? You can just watch them play in the offense. Like, that's just not what they're doing, right? Like, they're either trying to get Simmons to find the spacers, or you're coming off these like little pin down actions into the DHO, and then you want him to either put a shot up or try to get to the rim. And I'm fine with that. Like, that's just going to be what it is. But if right now with the current setup, if you're expecting him to be some kind of like this point guard lead playmaker, I just don't see it. Now, they switch Simmons out of the starting lineup maybe, and it's more Claxton, and he's rim running because you actually know you can throw him lobs and stuff.
Right.
Maybe that changes. But as of right now, I just don't see it happening. And so I'm just also okay with that too. We all want it to be this game expansion, but I don't know. Just watch the offensive flow. Like, there's just not a lot of opportunities for it. So it is what it is. And if he's going to be a, 52, 53, 100 guy like he was in this game, then okay, you'll take that also. So like, because the efficiency is so good that you frankly shouldn't pass. If you're going to shoot like this, don't pass.
Right. Right. Never pass. Now, hold on a second. I thought I needed to develop my all-around game. No. We take it back. Just keep doing what you're doing. Give us 50% from the field and be bombing threes all game long. It is worth just noting here, again, the defensive end of the floor. I like what I saw from him. He's clearly I don't know if you want to put this right at the feet of Fernandez coming into this year, or it's just a natural development of how he feels about it. But it seems like it's coaching down, and we'll talk a little bit more about maybe Fernandez too. But his instincts around trying to get up into the body of players, into Trae Young, and to find the spots where when the moment is available, get your hands in on that ball more quickly. Because it seems like last year, I would say he was always there as a speed bump. He has enough physical presence to be able to get in guys. You look at some of the advanced metrics on his ability to affect shots of players going to the rim. He did a decent job with that. Now you're talking about him actually getting a little bit more aggressive on the defensive end and seizing opportunities where if they're coming down the court, I can trust myself to take the chance to maybe break down a play and still be there physically in between Trae Young in the basket so it doesn't become a blow by. Like, there was very few instances where it looked like Cam Thomas was standing on the perimeter looking over his shoulder as someone was getting access to the rim. So I know that this is such a footnote to it, but I also think that it matters to look at his overall game and say, he did it. He was trying to do it at a high level at both ends. The results are always going to be better, more impressive, more exciting on offense. But I think the defensive focus is there for him this year.
Like I said, we saw in the preseason, the effort was clearly there. And I think that's sometimes as much as you can ask for a guy with this kind of profile is like, hey, are you going to try to jump some lanes? Or are you going to just get your body into people? Are you just not going to get lost? I mean, he got lots of times last year. He just kind of got lost in rotations. Lost on, like, he would just lose his guy, right? Like, and it would just look like he just wasn't even, either there wasn't the attention to detail or it was just kind of just being confused. Like, I'm not really sure, but I don't think that's going to happen less and less. And I do think there's clearly with Jordi Fernandez, like, to go back to the top here, there is accountability on that end. And I think it's, look, and if you're Cam Thomas too, you're thinking just like, hey, he didn't get a rookie extension, right? He's not paid. He's not gotten paid yet.
How about the old inspired to do well and show out, right?
He's going to make some money for sure. Like, for sure, he's going to sign a contract with the Nets or somewhere for real NBA money. I think that's no matter what. How much, though, probably does depend on some of this other stuff, like how dialed in you are on both ends of the court. Like, so it's not like he's just not a set it and forget it guy. No. Nick Claxton got paid $20+ million and just nearly, murdered Dyson Daniels, and he's out for the game after not playing in the preseason. You're like, okay, what's going on here? like played really well. I'm not blaming him for the money thing. I'm just saying that, like, he doesn't necessarily have to worry about the optics of stuff as much, probably at this point.
Yes.
I'm just using that as an example. Like, it's not really a dig at Claxton. I'm just saying that Thomas, there's still an optics thing that he has to worry about when it comes to the negotiating table here in the offseason.
And that, my friends, concludes our first look at the ornithology of Cam on the Locked On Nets podcast.
Oh, yes. The owl, baby. Oh, look at you.
Now,
I didn't realize.
we'll be working that all season long, baby. And this is, by the way, why you got to be part of the podcast feed. You got to get us on YouTube as well. Otherwise, you're missing out.
Everyone knows 2 years ago, I posted that, and it's one of my only campaigns. World peace. No, global. No, who cares?
Stop it.
Cam Thomas owl. Yes, that's something I can put my time and my dollars behind. All right, we're going to get into more Ben Simmons stuff. We'll get into some more stuff that we saw from this game. We'll get into that here in just one second. First, going to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Look, when it comes to watching sports, like most of us are doing on the TV, there's nothing better than the sensory excitement that you get from just watching those games live. NBA games, hockey games, going to the NHLs. It's a totally different experience. Gametime's got you hooked up for tickets for all events, concert shows, comedy stuff. It's all there for you on Gametime. You're going to find the best deals, those super deals. They're going to have the Gametime picks to let you know what's going on in your area. I'll let you know something's going on. Bucks at Nets Sunday, starting at $35 over on Barclays. Come on, that's a label. There's a fire emoji top event over on Gametime right now, so it's good. You get little Giannis coming to town, and follow it up on Tuesday with Jokic and company coming to town. Those are starting at $40 for you over on Gametime. You're not going to find better deals anywhere. You're gonna be able to see exactly what you see in your seats before you even sit down on the app. Gametime's got you covered. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, a reminder that tomorrow we're saving a little something for you, and it goes by the name Jalen Wilson. He was certainly impressive in this first game of the season, carrying over from the MVP Summer League performance, and we're going to take a deeper look at him and other key contributors, role players, veterans, etc. But obviously, at a high level, Cam Thomas matters a lot to the long-term future of this team. Ben Simmons kind of matters to the short-term future, I guess, or maybe not at all. But the bottom line is Ben Simmons gets out there. He plays 24 minutes. He goes 3 of 4, seismic sample size. He gives you 3 rebounds. He gives you, 5 rebounds overall, 8 assists. Nothing new there. We expect him to be able to distribute. I think we'll talk about Fernandez, the system. It's funny how primarily the same personnel looks functionally different when they're on the court than maybe in years past. But he also has the 6 fouls. That's enough to foul out of the game. And on a high level, I didn't see anything different from Ben Simmons. And I'm not saying this to be negative coming into the start of the year. He did mention after the game, he had a little bit burnt out, coming back. He's coming off the surgery. He hasn't been playing consistent basketball year over year the last handful of seasons. Said he needs to do better, needs to be more focused, can't take those kind of fouls. The foul piece, if I want to go negative to start, that's the thing that we saw since he's been a Brooklyn Net. At some point in the games, he just seems to be willing to kind of just reach out and take a foul. And then about 30 seconds later, take another one and another one. They stack up real quick, and he ends up out of the game, compounding Nicholas Claxton getting the flagrant 2 earlier in the contest. Anything different for you than, hey, Ben Simmons maybe just, he is what he is, and we know that we have to learn to live with it.
No, this is just what the kind of the experience is like. It's if you're hoping
you
that
hear
it's
the
going
tone shift for Doug Norrie when we start talking about Ben Simmons. It's like,
look, he played fine.
It's
fine. He should play. It's not I don't think he should be benched or anything. And
shouldn't be starting, but that's for another day.
I don't even mind that so much. I actually really don't care all that much about whether he's starting. I think that his skill set does help unlock some of these other guys for shots, and I think that's fine.
Yes, not obviously value. Yes,
it's not like you're trying to win anyway. So who cares if you're trying to boost? If there's any hope that they can unload the contract, you kind of have to play him a little bit or a lot of it. He's still better.
Do you think that Claxton would have started if he had been healthy in the preseason? You think it would have been Claxton?
Yeah, they signed. Yeah. He was the key free agent signing in the season. He's going to start. I don't think that's. And they did play him together. These guys did overlap in the third quarter, and so third, fourth, or early fourth quarter, they did overlap. They played together a little bit. It looked like you would expect it to look, but it's. I'm just not surprised. Simmons looks healthier. He doesn't want to shoot. Every once in a while, he gets it in his head to get to the basket. And he got fouled a couple times, and he probably had real gripes on that. And so, I don't know.
Yes.
It just is what it is.
So on a high level, one, he was more physical going towards the basket earlier in the game. That seemed to diminish as the game went on. Then the other thing what you have to acknowledge was he showed it. If you're watching on the Yes Network, he's going with the refs. He's showing his wrists and his arms. I mean, it was like it was a cat trapped in a burlap sack, and their only way out was to claw up Ben Simmons' arms. I mean, he was getting physically abused in and around the basket when he was going that way. So you can appreciate that as a player of his once talent, he probably views those instances as what are we doing here? Because now I just have to play through this physical contact. I have to play through what the defenses do to me because I'm not going to be regarded as one of the elite players in the league anymore. And that's a big shift, I think, for a player that mentally probably still views himself at a different caliber or a different level. So there is that side to it that is just worth acknowledging. But in totality, like you said, the physicality diminished over the course of the game in terms of attacking downhill at the basket. I like what they're doing around him. This bleeds a little bit into Jordi Fernandez. The wings are way more active, getting backdoor cuts and trying to create some space there. It mitigates having a non-shooter like him on the floor. But in the end, I just don't know if there's ever going to be a time like we had in the preseason, that second preseason game where we went, oh, well, that was something different. But then I just don't know if we're going to see that again. And maybe it is just him ramping up and feeling comfortable enough physically. But right now, it just feels like it's going to be this kind of line, low shot volume, high assist numbers. Yeah. Frankly, the one thing that I think does get exposed here, not to be negative on game one, but when Claxton gets the flagrant 2 and he fouls out, and then you only have Clowney on the roster and Day'Ron Sharpe is injured, you lose physical presence. I do think it exposes that Ben Simmons is just not a guy that you can look at and say, hey, go to the rim defensively and really make a statement that keeps guys away from attacking at the basket. It's never been the biggest part of his defensive game, but I don't see any of that being a part of it here either. So there is some functional fit there when it comes to the defensive end as well for him.
Yeah, look, they should pair well defensively, right? Like they should be like the Nets have personnel that should profile well to play defense. It's more just like how they score. Cam Thomas isn't going nuclear. Like they have real scoring problems. We'll talk more about Jalen Wilson tomorrow because that actually is like a nice surprise. Not surprise. That's been a nice continued graph pointing up kind of guy. And so, and we'll talk a little more about him. So, but like defensively, they should profile to always make things very difficult on the other team if Claxton is in there. And Claxton had some nice blocks in this game. Like he definitely made his presence known, or had a block that was really nice. But overall, it's never that side of the court. It's just the offense. And if you just have a guy who plays 24 minutes and has the ball a lot and he takes 4 shots, I can just tell you exactly how the math is going to work, right? Like if you play 24 minutes and you dribble the ball up for your team off the court and you get handed the ball in some form every single possession, which he does, and you take 4 shots, I'll tell you, I don't even need to watch the game to tell you how it's going to usually turn out. Right? Like you better make all the threes because if you don't, it's kind of over. So it just is what it is. I'm not discouraged, but I'm not surprised either.
No, and that's fine on Ben Simmons. The only last footnote I'll make here, because we're going to talk about Noah Clowney tomorrow, talk about Jalen Wilson tomorrow, some of these other players. But you mentioned the combination where at one point Claxton and Simmons did share the court. From a Jordi Fernandez standpoint, this guy's willing to try it all, and I think it's amazing. Every combination you could think of, it looked like he gave it a sample size. He had one where Noah Clowney was the 5, and he was surrounded by all wings and smalls, right? He had it where he put Zaire Williams and Noah Clowney and Nicholas Claxton and Ben Simmons on the court together to see what that looked like. And I think that's a really positive sign for how Jordi Fernandez and the Nets are approaching this season. Hey, we're going to have a lot of players. We have a lot of different options here, and we're going to try them all. And I think there'll be stretches where we settle into roles and rotations and how things are going to look. But there's no reason not to do this, because being beholden to just the veterans or just player XYZ or how it's supposed to look is only going to prevent you maybe from unlocking something that could be useful for the Nets going forward. So overall, from Jordi Fernandez, I like his mentality, his style. I think he kept it very clean when communicating with the refs on some of the fouls. And I'm excited to see how he approaches back-to-back games, 3, 4, 5 games into the season. If the Nets are 1-5, if they're 0-5, how does the messaging stay consistent for him when you want physical play, smart play, and also dealing with the fact that, it's going to be maybe some close games where you lose by 4 and you just got to hang your hat on what you're developing for your team.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about Jalen Wilson. We'll talk about some of the bench guys. We'll also preview what's to come with Nets at Magic. Make sure you go to WeGotNets.com. Grab a free copy of the season preview. All still relevant here. Stories, Jordi Fernandez, Cam Thomas, Noah Clowney, draft picks. It's all there for you. Woo! We Got Nets, totally free. Put in your email. You get it 4 days, 4 stories. All good to go. WeGotNets.com.
The thing that intrigued me from day one was the idea of taking a character and transforming him. And that was Vince Gillian talking about Breaking Bad.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.